Hello and welcome to English for iGaming. We are going to get started with my little presentation and talk a bit about the course and all the rest of it. So let's go. So who am I? I am Andrew Visser. I am a qualified English as a second language teacher. I also have 12 years experience in online gaming. And this course, the full course, will combine those two things. And we will be learning a little bit about some of the terms and practicing some of your English. We'll talk about that a little bit more, and we'll talk a little bit about what are we going to do today. We'll run through an example, something that I see some of my students struggle with, people get wrong in English. One of those things that's not necessarily hugely consequential, hugely significant, but does cause native English speakers to kind of sort of like, oh, what is that? That's not quite right, and slows things down. Let's talk a little bit about the full course. The full course is limited to 8 people per class. It's really not practical to teach more than 8 people at a time. The course itself will be very interactive, unlike today's session. We'll be using different technology to actually run that, and you will be talking with me, talking with each other, working in pairs, in groups, and so on. The course is 8 weeks. Each lesson will be about an hour and a half. That is usually about as long as most people can really properly focus on that. There will be homework, there will be stuff to do between the classes so that you get to practice what we've learnt. It's €300 and each lesson will combine new terms with practicing English. So we'll cover some terms from online gaming and we will practice our English at the same time. What are we actually going to do? A lot of that is up to you, but you'll be going through things to make you more comfortable with English and to help you with the terminology that's used in online gaming. And these will be things that are professional things. So we're not going to talk about going to a restaurant or ordering a taxi or shopping or anything like that, travel, none of that. This is all going to be professional type material. So we'll do things like practicing CV writing, interviews, how to participate in meetings, getting your point across in English without coming across as perhaps a bit blunt. English, as I'm sure most of you have noticed, is not a very direct language. We tend to talk around the subject rather than directly with the subject. And things like dealing with your managers and HR, how to have discussions with them. And really any other subject that you guys want to cover. Excuse me. If there's something that you particularly want to do, tell me and we'll put something together to cover that. It's about what you need and what's going to help you and what you feel will make your professional lives better and help you grow in your careers. Really, that's what it's all about. Let's talk a little bit about experience. How much experience with professional English do you have? If you've got less than a couple of years, 2 to 4 years, really that's the sort of the sweet spot for people in this course. If you've got more than 4 years, if you're a sort of C1, C2 level English speaker, there's probably not going to be a lot you can learn from this course. And if that's you, let us know and we'll look at putting something together if there's enough of you that's a bit more advanced. This is really, we're going to be aiming at people who are sort of B1, maybe B2 level, who've got some experience with English, but need some help in becoming more comfortable and more confident, and need to understand or want to understand the various terms that are used in online gaming. So how confident are you when you are in a professional situation and you're going to speak to your colleagues or speak to your manager or speak to a supplier or a customer or so on? How confident are you with your English? You're at a trade show or you're meeting some people. We're going to boost that. That's really what the core of this course is going to be about, making you feel more comfortable and more confident with your English. Now, I'll give you a tip. This is a freebie, and I give this to all of my English students. In English, and I'm sure it's just true in your own languages as well, there are usually 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 different ways you could structure a sentence in order to say the same thing. And that gets confusing. So my suggestion, my tip to all of you is to learn one of them and use that one every single Don't worry about the structure of the sentence, whether you're doing it in some past perfect or past imperfect or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's good to know what those are because people will use those with you when they're talking to you. But when you need to speak, just pick one of them. Why? It's one less thing for you to think about. If you're going to talk to someone, you can make yourself perfectly well understood using just one of those structures and use it all the time. And then you haven't got to think about, am I doing it in this tense, or is it this thing, or is it that? It's too much. We can only really do one thing at a time. You've got to think about what you want to say, and if you've got to think about the structure of the sentence and how you're going to say it, there's too many things to think about. So that's my tip. Pick one of them, use that one all the time, and you'll be just fine. You'll be much more comfortable and much more confident with your English just from that. And I've seen that with my students. They pick one, they just use that, and they reuse it and use it and use it. If you're a C2 level English speaker, then yes, you're going to use more of those. But at the sort of A2, B1, B2 level, that's the easiest way of doing it. Just pick one and use the same thing over and over again. So we're going to do a little quiz. We're going to go through some stuff, and we're going to use something that I find people who don't speak English as a first language, and even actually quite a few people who are native English speakers, get wrong. Now, in some cases for this, getting it wrong is like, oh, okay, that's not quite right, but nobody will really notice. I do not get it perfectly right every single time. There's one of these that when I do this with my students, I get it wrong about 50% of the time, because in my head, that's not the way I was brought up to speak it. And that then we can start talking a little bit about regional differences. So American English and British English, I'm sure most of you are aware of some differences, but even within the country there are slightly different ways of doing that. Now for some of these, for, since and from, if you get it wrong, nobody's going to notice. But for others, if you get it wrong, it's really going to sound weird to them. It's going to be like driving down the road and hitting a big speed bump. The person listening is going to go, what was that? I don't know, oof. And it's going to sort of derail the conversation a little bit. So we'll talk about those as we go through these exercises. So what have we got? Since, for, or from. Which one is it? Let's have a look. I haven't seen her. What do you think? Since the accident, for the accident, or from the accident? And don't worry if you don't understand the rules for this. We'll be talking about that after we've gone through this a little bit. So just to sort of set it in your minds, how comfortable are you with this? Since the accident. The new service will start for, from, or since. What do we think? I'll give you a second. Do we reckon? Yeah, it's from. I've been waiting since 2 hours, from 2 hours, for 2 hours. Now this is one of those examples where particularly people who perhaps come from a Germanic language, German, Danish and so on, and even some of the Eastern European languages, they're obviously doing a direct translation, and that translates to since 2 hours, which to a native English speaker is one of those speed bumps. That would sound strange to us. It's actually for 2 hours in this case. So he did yoga with her since the start of their relationship, from the start of their relationship, for the start of their relationship. That's not for, I think everyone knows that one. From the start of their relationship. And that's the one that I sometimes get wrong, because in my head it's one way and in the rule is actually a different one. So they have been friends since school, for school, since. You can buy all sorts of food for no, definitely not. Since very early in the morning, from. That one is from. This is a bit like the waiting one above, where they were waiting for 2 hours. He's been in prison, again, in some languages, I know, and some people would say since, but it's not. That's another one of those speed bump moments. This is a for. The centre is open, from, since, for. What do we think? Another second. That one is from. I've known the truth, for, from, since, for a long time. I haven't had so much fun, for I was in high school. From I was in high school? No. Since I was in high school. Let's see. Did I get them all right? Are we all right? Yes, 10 out of 10. And that one with the yoga, in my head, I sometimes want to say it's since, and that's one of those where if you do get for, since, and from confused, nobody's going to really notice. It's going to be one of those, that is not a speed bump moment. The 2 hours one and the 10 years one, those definitely are. So what are the rules for this? How does it actually work? When do we use one or the other? What is the difference? What happens? So from is used to indicate the starting point of a period of time or an action. So, you have been at work from 9 till 5. The plane leaves from Amsterdam airport. The train leaves from the local station. The bus will leave from the station at 8 a.m. as they said here. So it's a period of time. So something has started and it's going for a period of time. Or an action, something's going to be happening. Since is a starting point in the past and is something that keeps going. So you have been studying English since 2020. I have lived in Malta since 2021. I have been working in online gaming since 2013. That sort of thing. Or you have been doing something. You've been learning the clarinet since you were 2. Well, okay, maybe not 2, 6, something like that. It's something that started in the past and is continuing into the present. So it's still happening. Now, for is used to indicate an action or period of time. So something that's going on. He went for a walk. It's an action. I have been learning Spanish for 3 years, and I'm still terrible at it. She worked at the company for 5 months. So it's something that's happening. I have been teaching English for 2 years. I have worked for 12 years in online gaming. Those we only use for. So, for is a duration of an action or a period of time. Since is the starting point in the past up until the present. And from is something that's a starting point in a period of time or an action. So from, something happens at that time. And there's quite a nice little summary chart for that. I'll just use my smiley face out of the way so you can see that. For or since, for a period of time, since a starting point, since and from. It does talk about tenses in there, which is, incidentally is not something we're going to go into very much in the course. Learning what something is in terms of it's this particular grammar rule or it's this particular tense doesn't really help you get more comfortable and confident with your English. You've just got to do it. As I said with my tip, there are lots of different ways of saying something. We're just going to learn one of them, or you just learn one of them and use that one. It doesn't really matter whether it's the present or the past perfect or whatever. And then from, in other cases, and the starting point. So those are the rules. You've known John since you were a child. You have been at work since 4 o'clock. They've been here for hours. You have been on this course for 14 minutes, however long we've been going. And then the other cases. So that's the rule. That's how it works. I hope that's sort of given you a bit of an indication of how it goes. We're going to try another little test now and see if this actually has stuck with anybody. I've got to move myself back out of the way and we'll go over to the second exercise. So, since, for, from, complete these sentences. Come on, we're going to go quickly with these. I think everyone knows these now. He has improved a lot. Start of a season is something that's happened in the past and it's continuing to the present, so it's since. Everything will be cheaper. It's something that's going to happen in the future. It's not happening now. It's not a duration of time. So it's from. If it had started earlier, we'd say everything has been cheaper since 9 o'clock. But everything will be cheaper from 9 o'clock. It's an action in the future. I've had this watch 25 years. What's that? It's a period of time. So the answer is 4. Yep. We travelled to Italy 20 to 25 July. Well, that's a period of time, that's something that's happening, and it's from. I haven't seen her. What do we think? From the last meeting? Something that happened in the past? Now the action here is hasn't seen her, so it's since. The meeting is not really, it's just the moment. Next, I had to sit a few minutes to rest my legs. What's a few minutes? What do we think? That's a period of time, isn't it? So this is for. I haven't talked to them. Now they got married. We assume that they are still married. So is it from they got married or for? No, it's going to be since. Something that happened in the past and is continuing into the present. The concert started at 8, but the doors were open since 6:30. Not really, it's from. Again, that's one of those ones that in other languages it might be that since is the right way of saying that. We've been walking some amount of time, 6 hours, so it's a duration. What is it? Yep, it's for. And last one, we've been working very hard, something in the past, in January, and it's continuing into the present, so it is since. And let's see, did we get them all right? Did we get them all right? Yes, we did. Well done, everybody. Okay, let's go back to here, and we'll just finish here. So, quick summary of what the course actually is. It's 8 people, because that's as much as we can manage, and if we need to do more classes, we will. It will be 8 weeks, an hour and a half per class, and it's €300. And the idea is to learn some gambling terms, use those in practical examples to help you improve your English and to help you continue your careers and do well within the online gaming industry. Now, thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you all on the full course.